Okay. Hi, I'm Tricia Shore, and welcome to Beyond the Comedy of Phil Perrier, an interview with comic Phil Perrier about his newly released documentary, One Nighters. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, and welcome to my interview with Phil Perrier about One Nighters. My name is Tricia Shore, and thank you for watching. If you're watching on D Live or watching later. And so we're going to start this interview. I think we're good and we're recording. So we're going to start the interview with Phil Perrier, who is in Atlanta or
Hey,
outside of Atlanta.
yeah, I'm in Kirkwood, which is a suburb of Atlanta, and I'm honored to be talking to the beautiful Tricia Shore, comic mom, longtime friend. Although you look like you're about 30 years younger than me, which is
I'm not, but thank you.
my pleasure.
Yeah, so we watched One Nighters the other night.
Wow, I'm very flattered. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think everybody liked it. I loved
like
it.
when you say we, it's like you, your whole family.
Yeah, except for one. I think I'm not sure what was going on, but he was doing something else that night. But so my 21-year-old, my 19-year-old, my husband, and I all watched One Nighters.
Wow.
And my 19-year-old, he really liked it. He said it was very funny. Yeah.
How about that? See, I would have thought he would think, God, this is a bunch of boring old farts, I'm flattered that a 19-year-old, would have the attention span to dig it,
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They really liked it.
Great.
And it was. I think that for me, I didn't know what to expect. I was really sad at the end. Was that in North Hollywood? Did you live in North Hollywood?
Yeah. I lived right across from the casting office on Cahuenga. Yeah, I was like about a block from where Barham and Cahuenga, and then close to the Hollywood Bowl and all that.
Yeah.
That's where that was. Yeah.
Wow. I was trying to figure out where that was. Yeah, that was really sad. And the guy. I don't want to. I guess that's a spoiler alert, huh?
No, I don't know. No.
But it has to end, and I didn't want it to end. So I love the time change. I love that joke.
Oh, like in I think I said something like in Utah, it's now 1969.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Oh, I've got a quote down here, criminally insane for 15, 16.
Oh, right. When I was talking to the radio guy.
Yes.
On the phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Doing their radio interview. Yeah, I really liked that. And then there's a guy, and you mentioned him yesterday in Virus Schmaris. For those who don't know, every Monday, and I mean, this has been so consistent.
Numbingly, jarringly consistent.
Yeah, every Monday, Phil does Virus Schmaris, and has been doing that for like 2 years now. It's
on
been
Facebook.
2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would just last for COVID, and I didn't realize COVID was going to last for 3 seasons.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in our third year of COVID, for crying out loud.
It's been a while. It's certainly been a while. So you mentioned Jerry Farber.
Yep. Now he's in the film. He's the guy talking about getting attacked by hillbillies on stage in Virginia. Yeah.
In Danville, Virginia.
Right.
And some of my relatives are from Danville.
Well, hopefully they weren't the ones that attacked him. Maybe they were the police that rescued him from certain doom.
Yeah, that was hard to believe that happened.
Yeah.
To him, but he seemed really kind of neat, and he is from Atlanta.
Yep. In fact, I'm going on Saturday. I'm going to a birthday He's 84 years old, and there's like a birthday celebration of him at a place called the Red Light Cafe in Midtown Atlanta. and I'm going to go and speak and, you know, and fet, because I started at his club in 1985. He had a little jazz club called Jerry Farber's, and he would play piano and tell jokes, and he would bring on damn near anybody. And so, you know, open micers who couldn't get on at the punch, you know, because the open mic nights, you know, like 20 people, you probably, you know, sign up and then 3 or 4 get on. So most comics didn't get on, or most open micers didn't. So we'd go to Jerry Farber's and sit there and try to look pathetic, and he would put us on, you know. And then, you know, so he gave me more stage time in my first couple of years than anybody else, than everybody else combined. So I really owe him, you know, everything I've done since then, you know.
That's really nice. And so he's a comic, but he has a jazz club.
He did. He doesn't anymore. He sold it, but you know, he works the road, does corporate gigs. He's kind of an institution in Atlanta. He started out there playing piano in a place called the Lark and the Dove, which was just a serious, you know, he was just kind of background music, and he just kind of started, you know, telling jokes and winging it with the people around, you know, and the tables around him, and it just kind of, you know, it evolved into a real comedy act. And so it's like he didn't go through the usual open mics and then you're an MC and then you're a middle act. He kind of, you know, when he started working gigs, he was already a headliner. I mean, he could do 3 hours. He'd go up and play the piano and talk and tell jokes, and he's a force of nature, and he's brilliantly funny. His brother Barry Farber had a nationally syndicated radio show out of New York, and Barry Farber passed away recently, but his brother was like an institution, and you know, Jerry is in Atlanta. Brilliant guy.
And did he move to Atlanta from New York?
No, actually he grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, as did Barry, and then Barry went to New York for radio, and Jerry went to Atlanta to sell. The family business, I believe, was selling clothing. They were haberdashers, but then he had this jazz piano. You know, he got in with the wrong crowd, and he became a jazz piano player, and then he evolved into a jazz piano player / comedian, and you know, the rest is history. You know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, quite a story.
Yeah. Hey, let's see. Judy Tenuta also was in that.
Yep.
Documentary. How did you get
that? You know, I saw her because I mean, you know, she is a you know, pretty well-known comedian, and I saw her at a club years ago. I was doing a club in Toledo, Ohio, and she was at the club, like the big. You know, I was at my little crappy gig, and she was at the big club in Toledo, which I believe was the Toledo Comedy Club. And the owner let me in to see like the second show. It was, you know, I was doing one show on a Saturday, and she had like 3 shows, so I got to see her late show, and she just destroyed. I mean, I have never seen a comic work. It was like 300 people packed into this comedy club, and she just annihilated. And she's, you know, she's like riding men and calling them pigs, and she's just a force, you know, she's amazing. And so I was like, man, I got to get her in the documentary. And it turns out I'm living in like North Hollywood, and she was living in Sherman Oaks. So she was like 10 minutes away, you know? So I went to her mansion, and we shot the thing on her couch, and she was, you know, she gave some really good insight, you know, cause she'd been doing comedy for years. She dated Emo Phillips, if you remember him back in the day.
Yes.
And that's gotta be weird, dating Emo Phillips. I mean, that, you know.
Yeah.
She said all he ever ate was cereal, because he's like, he was really skinny back then. I was like, what, you know, what did he eat? She said all he ate was cereal. So
wow.
very, very eccentric young man.
Yeah. Wow. When around the time this documentary was being made, that was 2003.
Yep.
Yeah. Around that time, a little earlier.
So you were like in high school.
Thank you. Yes.
You were in you were in 8th grade, I think, when we were shooting this.
Yeah, right. And my son, the one that came in here a while ago to help us technically, the 21-year-old, we were in this play group, and it was up by Sunny Slope, you know, and that's where she lived up there at the time. I mean, you went up Sunny Slope.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
And the woman whose house we went to for this play group, I mean, we went a few times, and she she was neighbors with them. I'm not sure which house they lived in, but there were a lot of curves, I bet, to go up to her house, right? Yeah, because that's where they lived, and they eventually moved. I think she had another baby around 2003, so they eventually moved to Encino, where it was flatter, and they could put up, a basketball goal and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was that was a mountainous. I remember her driveway was at an angle, like,
Yeah, yeah, wow. And so I knew, and Hillary was the mom, and I knew that she and Emo Phillips were together because they were at that time, I guess, both in the house, or they both used to see Hillary's son, and she was like, yeah, they like to come down here and play with him and stuff, which I thought was really cool. So I know exactly, and it was behind that preschool. There was like a preschool, and that's where you turned up to go to it, I think. Yeah. So wow, that's really neat. I never met her, but the other mom knew her, and I thought that was, of course, I was the only comic in the play group, the only mom comic in the play group. So I, probably not any. I don't know how many people appreciated that, but I thought it was really, really cool that she lived close by. And I wrote down that I found myself loving the scenery in this. And so my 21-year-old, he goes, how did they film that stuff? Because they filmed you, whoever did the cinematography. I don't know who that was.
David Oyster was he was a friend of mine, Bobby Oliver, who teaches comedy. All right, this is like, in 2003, she was nannying for David Oyster and David Oyster's wife, their two kids. So I said to Bobby, because I was, like you're talking about the scenery, my buddy Dan and I were doing gigs up there. I'm looking around, I'm like, you got the Grand Tetons and snow-covered, and I was like, man, we got to shoot something up here. I said, well, let's do a documentary. And he's like, you mean like a mockumentary? I was like, no, like just a full-on documentary. So all right, so I get back to LA and I call Bobby Oliver, just because she's like one of my oldest friends, and I said, you know anybody that would know anybody that would do a documentary? She said, well, my boss is David Oyster. He's a documentary filmmaker, and it turns out he had been a cameraman for National Geographic Explorer, and Grizzly Adams, and he'd done Cosmos with Carl Sagan, and he also produced. Yeah, he had an amazing resume.
Wow.
And when it comes to shooting like outdoor stuff, he was like a natural. In fact, he started his career like up in Montana and those places shooting stuff. So he just, when I sat down, we went to a Chinese restaurant on Ventura Boulevard, had lunch. I was buying, I was trying to, wine him and dine him. And I talked to him about it. And he said, I like the sound of this. I'll do it for, like deferred money, which means zilch. And he was sitting in the back seat with two comics smoking cigarettes, which I don't do anymore. For 5 weeks. So that's he's like sticking the camera out the window. So that was all he had to do all day was shoot stuff, which was great because Dan and I, I think if we had to do the camera work, we probably would have aborted, halfway through. Week 2 would have been, this is too much work. Screw it, So it worked out really nicely,
So he came with you and just.
Yep, for 5 weeks. And yep, we did. And there were times where we only had 2 hotel rooms, so Dan and I would double up because I wanted to make sure that the filmmaker always had his own hotel room, for God's sake. I don't, so I don't want to make him miserable. I didn't want to run him off, frankly. So some nights Dan and I are we're in one hotel room and David's on the other side of the wall, and he was like, there were times when he'd be like, God, I heard you assholes up until 2 in the morning laughing and joking. What the hell is so funny? And I was like, man, I don't even remember. He just thought we were like, otters. I mean, we were just like these joyful creatures to him, which I didn't. I thought we were pretty depressive, but apparently not.
I love it. Dan Friedman is the other comic.
Dan Friedman, yeah.
I need to mention him now, and he was going to do something afterwards.
Well, yeah, at the end, I'm talking about, the fact that like Dan was kind of turning into a headliner, so he probably wouldn't be opening for me anymore after that. And he didn't. I did a couple of those, not 5 weeks, but I would go up for a week or two, and I did it with other people, but I never did it with Dan. That was our last tour together. So it really kind of was a swan song when we said goodbye at the end of it. I mean, we still were friends, but we didn't really work much. We did a couple of casinos and stuff, but that was pretty much the end of he and I touring together, which is kind of sad because, we've been doing it for several years. And those same gigs, that was like our third, fourth, fifth time doing some of those.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That was not the first time you've been up there.
No,
okay.
yeah. So we were familiar with like Butte and Billings and Bozeman and, Salem, Oregon and Coos Bay and Klamath Fall, all these places, we'd been there before. We knew the opening acts. We, knew some of the club owners. It was, so that was why I wanted to do the documentary, because the beauty, the scenery, and we knew they were good gigs, and we knew a lot of the people up there. We knew the crowds were, tended to be really, appreciative, particularly in the small towns, because they don't get a lot of live entertainment,
Yeah, exactly.
like Miles City, Montana. I mean, my God, we were like the Rolling Stones, and we get into town, and like we heard there were people scalping tickets to the show. It's like, are you kidding? To see
great.
Phil Perrier and Dan Friedman, two, completely unknown, unknown comics.
I love it. Yeah, I tried to copy down all the locations. I don't know if I did.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was like 25 shows in 30 days. It was just, we went from LA to Helena, Montana, and then Hamilton, Montana, Butte, Billings, Bozeman, Missoula, Kalispell. Then we went to Oregon and Washington, and we did a gig. We did it wrapped up in Winnemucca for 2 nights, and then Elko, Nevada, and then back to LA. So it was like 8,000 miles. I mean, it was an insane amount of driving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And did you had somebody that just coordinated that, like your agent? Or
well, yeah, David Tribble was a booking. He's retired, and he's in the movie. You see me asking him if anybody ever died going to one of his gigs. He's the guy that like routed, the whole thing, the whole 5 weeks. He booked every single one of those, and some of the radio station, interviews, and all the hotels. I mean, it was like, so he was sort of the booking agent / travel agent that kind of put it all together.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, he's if you see in the credits, he's listed as like associate producer, and but there were times it got so complicated that he was just like, man, I don't want to do that. I mean, I had to talk him off the ledge several times, like, oh, come on, please, because if we couldn't do the gigs, there's no movie, so.
Yeah. Oh.
And I wanted definitely to do his gigs because of the natural beauty. It's like if we would have done that tour in, Alabama and Georgia and North Carolina, it would have been, there's beautiful scenery, but not like that. I mean, my God, the Grand Tetons and the Rocky Mountains and all, like Glacier National Park, all the stuff we went through,
Yeah, Kalispell. We went up there, I guess it was a year ago in January, and it was just breathtaking.
Yeah, it is.
The mountains are really
And we
pretty.
saw like, I don't know if you remember, but in the movie, there's wild horses at one point running across the road. There's buffalo. We walked through a herd of elk. I mean, it was like Ice Road Comics meets, Call of the Wild. I mean, there's just so much wildlife up there. You can't ignore it. It gets in your face,
Yeah. What month did you go? You might have mentioned that.
Yeah, we were up there because like our second night or third night up there in Kalispell was Halloween. So it was like end of October and all of November. And then we had Thanksgiving we spent in, I think, Elko or Winnemucca, Nevada. And so it was like like 5 weeks, last week of October and then all of November. I think we came back like December 1st.
Oh, wow.
So it was already pretty wintry up there, but not, the hardest part of the winter had not hit yet. Thank God.
Yeah. Right.
Because we did not miss any gig. We had some treacherous, there were some blizzard conditions, but we did not miss any gigs. We were not late for any gigs. We had 25 gigs and we hit every single one of them,
Wow. That's incredible.
Well,
and
it was a mad dash,
Yeah, right. And you also got Tim Wilson involved.
Yep. Tim Wilson, he passed away way too young. In 2014, he had a heart attack.
Wow.
Died at the age of 51. I mean, he was seemingly everything was fine. He was doing shows, and then he just started feeling bad. It was kind of like John Ritter. I mean, he said he felt bad, and then, a couple hours later he's gone. But he was a guitar act, brilliantly funny. He's got a tremendous body. If you go to like YouTube and put in Tim Wilson, there's going to be all kind of stuff that comes up. But he is just as funny. And I think some of his insights during, in the interviews were some of the most, cogent insights into what it is to be a comedian.
Yeah. Yes, I was really like just fascinated by the stuff he said. He was very. I think he ended up kind of being like the sage.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, like if you ever saw The Big Lebowski, he's kind of like the cowboy. He kind of like ties it all. You see him in the beginning, you see him in the end, and he's kind of like he ties it all together.
Yeah, he does. Go live a little. That's a quote.
Exactly. Like, if you want to write jokes, you got to live your life. Don't try to sit down and write jokes. Go out and live, and then things will happen to you, and then you can write jokes about it. Like he was saying, and he said adding on to a house, gave him like 45 minutes of material. So he added 1,000 feet onto his house, and it just, added a ton of material.
Yeah, that's incredible. And he was in LA and then he moved.
Yep. And I think that's a great part of the movie. When I asked him, it's like, why did you leave LA? And he's talking about driving on the freeway and looking up and saying, God, I've done everything you want me to do. What do I have to do, to make it? And God, I don't want to say what God said, but God responded to him, and he followed God's orders, which is always
yeah.
And that's a hell. And I don't think he was kidding. I mean, I think he really did that.
Yeah.
I think God really responded to that.
Yeah.
to his satisfaction anyway.
Yeah. And that's where I've heard him. Is in North Carolina. There's a station that plays him. That plays comedy clips sometimes, and when we're there, and they've played him,
was it John Boy and Billy, and then Rick and Bubba, and then Bob and Tom? He was on tons of morning radio. He was a darling of, he had millions of fans from morning radio, and he was just so great on the radio.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I hadn't really heard too much about him, but and I haven't seen his work too much, but I loved him.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's got that distinctive. He's got I was sitting on the back of a Greyhound bus, reading the biography of Ed Gein.
How did you get to know him?
Well, I first in 1984, I was the doorman at the Comedy Spot in Atlanta, which was near where I live. And he was like one of the young, he was like 2 years older than me. He was like 21, and already it was an open micer, but he was already starting to work the road because he was just so funny. And I met him then, and then a couple of years later, I started working, and we worked together. And there were times when I sat in a car. We're going to some gig, and I'm in a car with him for like 10 hours, and it never stopped being entertaining. He was so, his mind was so active that we were just talking about the Kennedy assassination. And I remember one time we're driving through the countryside in like Tennessee, and he pointed to some little shack, and he said, if you went into that house, that woman sitting there making coffee would know who Elvis Presley. He was just blown away by the fact that if you went into a mud hut in Africa, there'd be a picture of Elvis Presley. He was fascinated by Elvis Presley. But he was right. Elvis Presley had that kind of fame. It's like, anywhere in the world you went, or the Beatles or Michael, there's a handful of people that are that famous,
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's true. Wow. And he would tap into that. Now he was married.
Yep. At that time he was married. In fact, his daughter Sophia and his son Ari have made a documentary film. It's called Tim Wilson Alive at the Punchline, which is a club in Atlanta. And it's like a 90, I think it's on Patreon. And I plan to watch it. I'm just a huge Tim Wilson fan. And his daughter is now like, because remember he was talking about his 14-year-old daughter. She's now like 30 and beautiful. And Tim was married to a beautiful Israeli lady.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, I'm a Baptist from Columbus, Georgia. I married a girl from Israel. That went over like a fart in a diving helmet.
Wow. Yeah. He
And
seems
then they got divorced, and he married a black lady that wound up being with him when he passed away. So he left a widow who was a black lady, which, you hear Tim Wilson talking, a white Southerner from, Columbus, Georgia. I'll bet marrying a black lady probably also went over like a fart in a diving helmet, but that was just him. If he loved somebody, he was going to marry. He didn't give a damn what the home folks thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
Wow.
was a brave and brilliant, guy.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Wow. And then there was let's see, Judy Tenuta, Jay Leno. But you used to write for him. That was
Yep.
How did you ask
And,
him? I mean, ask him.
well, I was like I was faxing jokes to him. So I mean, I'd met him. I'd gone to tapings and had my 5 seconds with Jay Leno, and had my picture taken. I'd seen him at the Comedy and Magic Club, and so I was like, when I first started the project, I knew I wanted to interview him, or I was going to ask him. I thought, wouldn't that be amazing? So I called up the Tonight Show. I spoke to Helga, his assistant. I said, can I talk to Jay? And I mean, I was terrified. She was like, yeah, hold on. And next thing, hello. And I said, Jay, would you be in my documentary? Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, just come in. So we went to the Tonight Show, like after a taping, we're back in the green room, and he hung out for like 45 minutes. And he would have gone longer. He was having a ball. And I mean, when he said he would do it, I had tears in my eyes. I mean, I called my mom. I was like, my God, Jay Leno's going to be in the movie. She was like, wow, that's good. And that was the only name. It's like if I said Judy Tenuta's good, who's that? So I just got tired of that. So, but Jay Leno, man, she knew that. So yeah, Jay did it. I thought he was brilliant, talking about his early days working with strippers, and and that thing he said when I said, do you miss the smoky rooms and the intimacies? Like, he's like, no, it sucked. Just like, after years of low money and smoky rooms, I was like, I don't want to be one of these. Because he was saying, like, when he was young, you think that the guys that are really cool are the ones who never quite made it, and those are the guys working for low money and smoky rooms. And he did that for years. He's like, I don't want to be one of these guys. This sucks.
Yeah. He's
we
not
want to be the king of late night,
Yeah. And wow. Yeah, that's really cool. But he's always seemed like a really nice guy. When I've seen him, we've seen him a couple of times. We saw him one time at Whole Foods. We saw him one time out for a Sunday when we first moved here for a Sunday afternoon drive in one of his old cars.
One of his cars, yeah.
Yeah, and he's always been very pleasant.
Oh no, he's I've never heard a bad word about Jay Leno in my entire life, and that's as bitchy as comedians are, but he's just Now Bill Cosby, I've heard there's some murmuring that maybe there was some wrongdoing on his part, but Jay Leno, never a word.
A little bit of murmuring about
a little bit of murmuring. I don't know. I've heard there's some talk that maybe Cosby did some inappropriate things,
Yeah, once in a while. Yeah.
But you would have been like you would have been like candy for Bill Cosby, man. He would have been, he would have been like, here, take a drink, here, have some Jello.
Some Jello. Yeah, right.
He'd be trying to give you some Jello, Trish.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what's in that Jello?
Yeah, what's in that Jello?
So very I really liked that I don't know, I thought a lot of him. I think somebody has come up with a book recently called What Should We Think About?
Oh yeah, it's W. Kamau Bell. I saw it on Showtime, like a documentary series saying I think it was called We Have to Talk About Bill Cosby. Yes. And it was really interesting. And at the end of it, Cosby, he got out of jail on some technicality.
Yeah.
And so all those victims are just disgusted because, he finally, there was some justice, and he went to jail for like 2 years, and then that got cut short because of some nonsense. And so now, the victims feel like they didn't get much justice, which obviously they did not, so. Yeah. But I mean, it's hard, it's like, I grew up, and you probably grew up laughing at, Bill Cosby was hilarious. Fat Albert.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's like, we all love Bill Cosby, and the idea that he had this other side to him, it's just hard to get, you can't, retract a million laughs, but it's like, how do you get your head around? And it makes you think like, well, what else don't, who else is freaking a monster? Was Mr. Rogers? I mean, Santa Claus, who else is the Dalai Lama? Is he raping puppies? And what the hell?
That's right. And we used to listen to, in fact, that's what someone recommended, that we listen to Bill Cosby when my kids were little. So they were very familiar with his stuff. And he did stuff on the Bible. He has that really great, Noah.
Oh, yeah. And his act was squeaky clean. I mean, not only was he clean, but I mean, he would take, comics to task, like Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, and, you shouldn't be swearing and you shouldn't be talking about all that stuff. He was like really moralistic. And then, he's at the Playboy Mansion, getting his freak on later that night, so.
Shouldn't be raping.
Yeah. Try not to rape people. That was like, I think Hannibal Buress, he started that whole thing when it's like, shut up, Bill Cosby, you rape people. And the next thing you know, people are like, wait a minute, Bill Cosby rapes people? That's not good.
Yeah. Wow.
So my film has no rape, but I'll tell you what, back then in 2003, I reached out to Bill Cosby's management, because I mean, at that time he was huge, and I tried to get him to be in the film.
Wow.
Yeah, I never heard back, thank God, because that would just be somebody you have to cut out, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know.
It's kind of hard to sell a documentary. It's like, you're saying, and Bill Cosby's in it. Bop, 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 bop. It's like, yeah, no, thank you. Bill Cosby and OJ. It's like, oh, wait a minute. And Roman Polanski. Wait a minute. Might as well have the Manson family in the damn thing,
Oh, yeah.
Well, you have such a tremendous laugh, Trish.
Oh, thank you. I do like to laugh. That's why I like being around comics,
Yeah, it makes you laugh.
It's funny. I do like that. A healthy drug. That was a Jerry Farber.
Yep. To me, that's like maybe the most poignant sentence in the whole movie. I was like, Jerry, why do you do comedy? And he said, it's just something about the laughter of strangers. It's like listening to babies burbling, or there's just nothing like it. And there's something so unifying about it. And it's like, I think he said it painted promise for the future. I was like, wow. Good quote.
Yeah, that's a beautiful quote. I felt very uplifted, after that whole thing. And like comedy is important, because a lot of people think it's not, but it's very healing. And, I kind of felt that. And I think, my kids have sort of grown up around comics and stuff. And, so they didn't think much about it, but to sit down and watch it was an hour and a half.
Yeah, 85 minutes, so not quite, like 5 minutes shy of an hour and a half.
Yeah, I wanted it to be longer.
Wow, that's music to my ears. Because when you're making a movie, you're afraid it's going to drag, or it's going to be a little too long. But I've heard several people go, man, I wish that would have gone longer.
Yeah. It's just I fell in love with the whole thing, really. And my kids, got to watch this and look at comedy in a whole different, kind of like in a backstage way, and they had never really seen it like that. And
they get to see the sausages being made.
Yes.
Because, like the people in those towns, I mean, they don't realize that you drove all freaking day to get there. Like Dan was talking, he's pumping gas and he's saying, we got to drive 9 or 10 hours and then get on stage and be fresh and funny. And, driving day after day after day. So everybody's kind of exhausted and worn down. But you get on stage, they don't care. They're paying to see comedy. And, it's your job to make them laugh, They don't want to know if you're tired or been driving all day or, whatever. It's like, make me laugh now,
Yeah, that's the incredible part, is all of that, how it looked. It looked very easy. Y'all also made it look very easy, too.
Well, but you're boiling that whole thing down. I mean, if you showed a 9-hour drive, you just like, it'd be the most boring film in the world,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, I don't know though. I don't know. It all sounded really good.
Yeah.
For $20. What? Oh, 2 for $20. I've got that, and that you said that.
Oh, when I'm selling my DVDs, I'll say, yeah, they're $10, and I'll do 2 for 20. I actually sold that from there's a comedian, James Gregory, who
yes,
he's an institution in the South, and years ago I worked with him, and he was selling something like he sells a bunch of stuff, T-shirts and all sorts of tire gauges and all sorts of stuff. And he's like, yeah, this is my new tape. It's $10. I'll do 2 for 20. So I stole that from James Gregory.
Yeah.
He's still performing to this day. He plays concert-sized venues now, but.
Yes. I think it was a comedy class that I took when we first moved here. Who was it? She worked with Judy Carter. I can't think of her name. And I love her so much. Her name will come to me, but she told the story about James Gregory. He used to send out cards. He
had a mailing list.
Addresses.
Before social media, he would on the tables he would have write your name and address, and then he would send, I'm coming to your town. He had a newsletter. He just kept, he built a fan base like brick by brick by brick, starting in the South and kind of working out, and he built, he became famous in his own in his own region,
Yeah, he certainly did. And when I started out doing comedy in Raleigh at Charlie Goodnight.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been there?
One of my first gigs. In fact, I worked there with Emo Phillips in 1987. One of my first.
Oh, wow.
And at the condo, when I'm checking in, Bill Hicks and his Houston Outlaw Comics they're sitting around waiting for the cab to take him to the airport. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like 22 years old. I'm sitting in the living room of the condo talking to Bill Hicks, and I'd seen him on Letterman. I idol, it was like, it's like me hanging out with Abraham Lincoln, for crying out loud. I thought this is the coolest freaking thing. I mean, it was pretty cool working with Emo Phillips, but meeting Bill Hicks just knocked my socks off,
Yeah.
And he was funny and cool, and everything you'd expect Bill Hicks to be,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
So I went in there and was doing some comedy. It was before we moved out here, and that's where I learned about James Gregory. And it would just sell out with him. Sell out.
He's got the most loyal fan base. He's like the Neil Diamond of comedy,
Yes, he is.
Or Jimmy Buffett. He's got one of those niche. It's like his fans will move heaven and earth to see him.
Yeah, and he's really funny. I think he lives in Atlanta too, doesn't he?
Yep. He might still. He had a Christmas party every year at his mansion in Roswell or Woodstock, and that was one of when you knew you were making it, when you got invited to the James Gregory Christmas. That was the one thing about moving to LA. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to go to the James Gregory Christmas party anymore.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huh. That's really nice. So he's a really nice guy too.
Oh yeah. No, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah. I find a lot of comics are, and people don't see that. Really. Let's see. Oh, Redding, California was another place where you were.
Yep.
Chris DePetta.
Chris DePetta. Now he was one of the owners of the Punchline in Atlanta. And he manages Billy Gardell, because now Billy Gardell's on Bob Hart's Abishola, so everybody's making money. But he managed Jeff Foxworthy, Steve Harvey, Tim Wilson, Mitch Hedberg. In fact, when I got to Chris DePetta's house that day to do the interview, he said Mitch Hedberg almost lost his leg today. He's shooting heroin into his leg, and he's in a hospital, and they were gonna amputate his. And I mean, I was like, I thought Mitch Hedberg was like a pothead. I didn't really know because he's a pretty self-destructive guy, but just freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That was.
I did not know that. I thought he just did pot.
Heroin, which it's not a good drug. If you want to live long, do not do heroin. That's for all you kids out there. Stay off the heroin. That's my advice. Just smoke pot.
That's right.
And share it.
Yes. They don't have that in Georgia, right?
No legal. Yeah, that's one of the things I miss about LA is going to the dispensary, getting my half ounce for $60 a month.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
it's like going to the 7-Eleven. You just go in, you get your doobie, and there's usually a cute girl working at the front desk there, and not anymore. Now I'm in Georgia and I'm a criminal.
Oh gosh. But from what I have seen, when we go across the country, we go through Arkansas, and it looks like Arkansas does have those places. I
Well,
mean,
Florida does.
oh really? I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
with Ron DeSantis, Florida has medical. It's not like recreational, but it's medical. Which might as well be recreational.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Georgia's,
Okay.
it's still pretty backward in some ways.
Yeah. I don't think they'll do that in North Carolina either, because the pharmaceutical industry is so big in North Carolina. So yeah, they have reasons to not do that, I would say. Gosh. Okay, let's see. Who oh what? Oh yeah, somebody in Astoria, Oregon, and then somebody said something about a pager, and then my 21-year-old said, "What's a pager?"
What's a pager? Yeah. Or, yeah, I think Dan's are like, turn your pagers off. And I was like, man, that really dates this movie, It's like, get out your 8-track players and,
Your
yeah,
cassette deck.
Pagers are deader than, than MySpace,
Yeah, that was about the time of MySpace.
Yeah, that was maybe a little before MySpace, yeah. But yeah, I mean, in
Yeah,
2003, there really, social media as we know it did not exist.
yeah,
And also, like, we didn't have GPS in the car. We've got, we're looking at an atlas, a piece of paper, a map,
yeah, right.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the way it was.
great. Yeah, right. There was a guy, maybe in Klamath Falls, and I thought this was really, really touching. I mean, I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but I loved what you did to him, where you made him get back up on stage, and he was so.
Yeah. What was
What
his?
was his name? I loved him, and I didn't catch
Yeah.
his name.
Because we'd been there several times, and we remember because after the show we would always hang out with him and get a pizza and hang out in our room and talk, shop. And but yeah, he was, when it came to emceeing, he would just kind of read it. Okay, your headliners, Phil, Greg. So I was like, Greg, come in. I like showed him how to do it, and he actually did it better. And but he's a sweetheart. I hope he's still out there somewhere. I have not talked to him in a long time.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. I thought that was really nice. There
Well,
were
you're
things.
really beautiful, Trish.
There are a lot of things in this documentary that are very just touching. They show y'all as real people, you and Dan Friedman. So is Dan Friedman? He's still in LA?
No, he moved back. He's from Cincinnati. He's back in Ohio now, and I think he works at a club there called Go Bananas, which is like his home comedy club. And he and I, yeah, we talk, because since this movie came out, he's excited about it, and I'm sure he's starting to get, comics are starting to reach out to him and telling him that, hey, we saw you in that documentary.
Yeah. So he's still headlines, and he's still traveling.
Yeah, he's still working and doing. He smokes. So God, I mean, because I begged him even back then. I was like, man, you got to stop smoking, because I stopped smoking in 2005, and he's still smoking, but he's alive, so
That's good.
It can happen. Yeah, looking good.
Yeah, that's good. Wow, he's from Ohio. A lot of people have moved back to where they're from. Yeah.
I didn't want to, boy. My mom passed away and left me this house, and it was kind of there were some reasons I had to move back here or else lose the house. But I mean, I had a rent-controlled apartment in Van Nuys, right near Liquid Zoo there, and I had a girlfriend and a good life, and I had no desire whatsoever to move back. I mean, I love Atlanta, but I didn't want to move back. But here I am. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you were close to us.
Yeah, I miss LA so much. It's so sunny and beautiful there.
Yeah.
Hot ladies like yourself out walking around everywhere, you know.
Yeah, I love that there's not so much humidity here. You know,
I
there's just so
know.
much humidity and
God, that was the first thing I got back here. I was like, good God, it's like a freaking swamp, you know. Everything goes limp, you know. You take money out of your wallet, it just kind of falls limp, you know. Everything, paper just turns to mud. I mean, it's weird, but yeah, I miss LA, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Although a lot of people are moving out.
Yeah.
And that was kind of nice about the documentary is that, you know, we got to see kind of the outside of LA kind of life, you
Yeah,
know.
you got to see small town America, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And how much those people appreciate comedy. It seems like they
Yeah,
really
yeah.
appreciate it.
That's the thing. I mean, you know, with like the one gig that we had a hard time was that one in Coos Bay, but I mean, the gigs were great. You know, the crowds were so happy to have comedy, and they were, you know, sometimes they were laughing just when we walked out there. You know, they were so
Yeah.
appreciative. They're not, you know, like LA crowds and New York crowds can be jaded. There was nothing jaded, you know, about the crowds in Montana and Washington and Oregon and Nevada, Idaho. They were fantastic.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, and you're so good with crowd work too. I think my kids were impressed for that. Yeah, I mean, you really have to acclimate yourself in that situation, you know, like I mean, I'm used to doing a lot of stuff at the Liquid Zoo. I kind of know the crowd that's going to be there, but you never really know that crowd that's going to be at a club when you're in Kalispell or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, you got to just play. You got to play the cards you're dealt, you know, and
Yeah,
take what they give you, you know.
yeah, yeah,
But the
yeah.
one night I got angry at the crowd that one night in Coos Bay where that Greg guy, because they were just drunk and they were heckling, and then, you know, it's like it's not professional to get angry at the audience, but because, you know, you're screwed when you start getting mad at them, you're not going to have a good show, you know, because it shows. And I was basically bitching them out, you know. I was like, yeah, you guys suck, you know. But hey, you know, that was then. Maybe I'll be doing that Saturday night at Jerry Farber's birthday party, you know. You guys suck. I know these jokes are funny. Screw you people. Rah. Happy birthday, Jerry.
84. That's
84
really
years
awesome.
old, yeah. But he's
So
got
he
the
was
body of a 75-year-old.
okay, that's good.
And you've got the body of a 25-year-old, so it all works out.
Oh gosh, that's so sweet. Yeah, so that might be everything for my notes. I want to make sure. Oh, on stage funny. That was a Jay Leno comment, I think. On stage
Oh,
funny.
right. Yeah, he was talking about like how he would go and work comedy clubs in LA, and then afterwards they would sit around in restaurants, and, you know, he would tell stories and break up the other guys, and they were like, you know, you should try that story on stage. And he basically was saying, you know, when you can be as funny on stage as you are off stage, you know, that's when you know you can make it.
Yeah.
And he talked about guys that are like really, you know, hilarious off stage, and on stage they're just really hacky and they're doing old tired material. You know, and I might be a guy like that, frankly. I mean, but he's right though. You know, I think when you can really be completely yourself on stage, that's when you've made it. You know.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's good. There's a lot of stuff in this documentary for comics, and there's a lot of stuff for non-comics. I just think it's a wonderful thing, and it has a really nice feel. It's one of
Wow.
those that really affected me. You know, like that night I was thinking about it, and the next morning I was thinking about it. I was like, I want to, you know, I hate that it ended.
Wow, man, that's so
But
sweet.
yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, maybe
So,
there will be a sequel. Maybe Daniel and I will go back and do another. And I was thinking, if we do it again, we should have like a young, diverse, like a black woman or a gay, you know, something that's not just a white guy. Because that was one thing that, like, looking back, now you look at this film and you go, well, this is just a cracker fest. This is a honky fest. We need diversity, you know. So I would have a diverse opening act, like a vegan, gay, transsexual, you know, something really diverse, incredibly diverse, lactose intolerant, you know, a bunch of diversity.
lactose intolerant, yeah. You got to get the lactose intolerant
Yeah.
there. For sure. Oh, this is great. So, I hope that everyone watches this One Nighters.
Thank
How
you.
many are you getting? A lot of YouTube videos?
Yeah, they're it's a nice steady, I think it's a lot of comedians. I mean, like I'm hearing from just a lot of people are going, man, this is really the life, I mean, it's bringing some of them to tears, some of them are having flashbacks. It's hitting a little too close to home with some of them, but a lot of them are like, man, you really nailed it. That is life on the road, boiled down to an hour and a half.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, so that's good. And you can also get it on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, yep.
Okay.
Live streaming, you can rent it, you can buy it, you can own it, you can be it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad. I'm glad that I think we've kind of just gone over stuff that will make people want to watch it,
Well, I hope so. And I mean, like I say, I really think like if it turns people on to Tim Wilson, and
yeah.
Jerry Farber, and we all know Jay Leno and probably Judy Tenuta and Billy Gardell, but there's some really funny people you ain't never heard of, and I think
Yeah.
people should be aware of these people.
Yeah, yeah. And Billy Gardell, we didn't say anything about him. Just quickly, just tell us what you think about or how he got involved in things.
Well, see, I knew him, because he and I worked together at the Punchline in Jacksonville, Florida, like 30 years ago. He was, I don't know, 20. I was like in my early 20s. We hit it off. We stayed in the condo together. We stayed in touch. And then I moved to LA. He moved to LA. And so I just called him up. I said, would you be in my documentary? And he at that time was doing like a voice for, it was on his baseball cap. It was like a thing on the Cartoon Network or something, or a rat or something. He was doing funny. He was already starting to succeed. But then after that, he did Mike and Molly, and now he's Bob Hart's Avashola. I mean, he's a major star now, making, millions of dollars. And, that back then I just knew him as a brilliant guy that I worked with. But I thought he did a thing about, like, he had the first thing he bought for himself was a really nice watch, and he's driving to some gig, and it's like a crazy drive, and he stopped at a hotel for a few hours to sleep, and he left the hotel, and then he looks at his wrist a few hours later, and the watch is gone, and he's like, well, I could drive back and try to get the watch and maybe miss the gig, or so he just he let it go, and then a few weeks later he got pulled over in like West Virginia, and he had a little bit of pot in his luggage, and they didn't search him, and he just thought, well, that's the road paying me back. I mean, I had one setback, and then now the gods of the road have given me a gift. I'm not in jail in West Virginia.
Yes.
So the road gives and the road takes. That was his takeaway. I think that was very profound.
That was an amazing story. I was just sitting there when he was telling. Yeah.
And the cop puts his day planner with his pot under his arm, and he's holding it like it's like a freaking Hitchcock movie, And then he hands it back to him. Okay, sir, have a good day. And Billy's like, all right.
Yeah, that was.
I'm sure Billy does not do anything illegal or wrong today in any way, shape, or form.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Anything else you'd like to say about this? It's
no, just it was a labor of love. It's something I really I worked on it for years, and there were
years.
There was a problem. It took this long because I had a hard time getting the original files. I don't want to go into all that, but I just never gave up on it. I hung. That's, if there's a message, it's just, if you've got a dream, you got a vision, never give up on it. Just stay on it, and it will eventually come to pass.
Yeah, right. Wow, a lesson in perseverance.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Well,
can you sing an outro for us?
Pretty woman walking down the street, pretty woman, look how I'd like to meet. How did you get that way? Tricia's a pretty woman.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Gosh,
all right, baby. Thank you.
This has been so wonderful to hear about this and hear the behind the scenes of the behind the scenes documentary, which is nice.
Oh, thank you, Trish. It's been a pleasure. You're always just a breath of fresh air.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you.
All right,
And
kiddo.
I appreciate everybody watching and who will watch. And I hope you will watch One Nighters by Phil Perrier. And yeah.
Bless you, Trish.
Huh?
I said, bless you, Trish. You're a wonderful lady.
Thank you. And you know, I hope this leads to a lot more, success for you. I think it will.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a good deed.
I see good things in your future too.
Okay, well, thank you. I hope so. See.
All right,
So thank you all for watching. Watch One Nighters.